Hi, this is Christa at the Secret Yarnery. Today we are doing part 12 of the Secret Stitches Cal 2021, the Granny Takes a Hike square. You will love this stitch as much as I do. We are taking Granny on a hike. She's going to be going up hills, across plateaus, and down hills, all the way across our rows. Super easy to remember, and it ends up being this lovely, gorgeous design, this lovely stitch. If you'd like to do the other squares of this cal, there's 12 different stitches all together, and we're joining these into a blanket. So that'll be super great and gorgeous. You can use all the same color yarn for yours, or you can change it up like I have, whatever you'd like to do. If you'd like a written pattern to go along with this square, it's Granny Takes a Hike square over on my website, secretyarnery.com. And all my patterns are written in plain English. There is no abbreviation, so it is whatever I'm saying in the video, but on paper form. So it's easy to follow along, and you do not have to know how to read a pattern. The rest of the squares are also available over on my website, secretyarnery.com, and also tutorials on my channel if you'd like to follow along visually or on paper. To make the Granny Takes a Hike square, I'm using the same type of yarn as I did for the rest of my squares. This is Savor from Ice Yarns, and I'm also using the same size hook. So same type of yarn, same type of hook, and this is a 6mm to go along with my 4 worsted weight, but use whatever hook you have been using for the rest of your squares. Also, you don't need, but 5 stitch markers are really handy. You'll also need a darning needle for sewing in your ends and a pair of scissors. So let's get started. Grab your stitch markers and your hook and your yarn and your written pattern if you're following along at home. We're going to start by making a slip knot, leaving a long enough tail to sew in with a needle later. So shrink that down and pop it onto your hook. And chain 10. So this pattern is a multiple of 10. So chain 10. 1, 2, 3, 9, and 10. Roll that pretty little chain over onto its side, and we are looking for these little camel bumps along the back, or these back loops. The first one is right underneath the working yarn. So there is 1, 2, 3, 4. We're looking for the very first one right here, right underneath the working yarn. Grab a stitch marker and just pop it onto that back loop. Just like that. And chain 10 more. Again, roll your chain over onto its side. Look for that very first back loop, that little camel bump right underneath the working yarn. And we're going to pop another stitch marker on. This is just going to help us work into our chain and know that we're counting our stitches correctly. And now just keep doing that until you have used up all 5 stitch markers, or chained 50. So there is my last stitch marker. I have chained 50 and chain 1 more. So it's a multiple of 10 plus 1. So now roll that chain over again onto its side. We're going to be looking for the 5th chain, or the 5th back loop. So the first one is right underneath our working yarn. Second has a stitch marker. So then there is 3, 4, and 5 is right there. So into the 5th chain from your hook, wrap your yarn, slide that back loop onto your hook, and make 2 double crochets. There is 1, and here is 2. So rolling that pretty little chain onto its side. So skipping 5 chains, these little back loops, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We want to work into the 6th chain right here, and that's the one right before our stitch marker. And that's how we're going to be using our stitch markers to help us work into our chain. So into the stitch before the stitch marker, wrap your yarn, go into that stitch, just slide that back loop onto your hook, and we are going to do a shell, an uphill shell. That is 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, and 1 double crochet into the same stitch. Chain 1, skip 1. So now into the stitch after the stitch marker, go in and make 1 double crochet. Chain 1, skip 1, and into the next stitch we're going to do our downhill shells. So we're going to walk Granny down the hill. So that is 1 double crochet, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. Now we're going to skip our 5 stitches, working into the 6th. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's the stitch right before the stitch marker. So just slide that on and make your uphill shell. Uphill shells are 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, and 1 more double crochet into the same chain. Chain 1, skip 1. So into the chain after the stitch marker, 1 double crochet. Chain 1, skip 1, and into the second chain, we're going to do our downhill shell. That is 1 double crochet. Chain 2, and 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. We're just making these little plateaus all the way along. Wrap your yarn, skip 5 into the stitch right before the stitch marker. Slide that back loop onto your hook and do your uphill shell. So that is 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, and 1 double crochet into the same stitch. Chain 1, skip 1. So skip the stitch with the stitch marker. Into the second stitch, slide that onto your hook and make 1 double crochet. Chain 1, skip 1, into the second chain, just sliding the back loop on. We're going to do our downhill shell, so that is 1 double crochet, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. Wrap your yarn, skip 5 into the stitch before the stitch marker. We'll do an uphill shell, so that is 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 1 double crochet into the same stitch. Chain 1, wrap your yarn, skip 1 into the stitch after that stitch marker, 1 double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, wrap your yarn and make a downhill shell. So that is 1 double crochet, chain 2, and 2 double crochets all into the same stitch. 1 and 2. Skipping 5 and working into our very last chain, wrap your yarn into that last chain right before the knot, slide that back loop onto your hook, and make your uphill shell. So that is 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, and 1 double crochet into the same stitch. Just like that. And that finishes row 1. You can go ahead and pop your stitch markers out. To start row 2, chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and turn your work. To turn your work so you're working into your chain is nice and easy, slide your hand underneath your working yarn, grab your work, and just bring it to the other side. Just turn your work. Now into this very first stitch, right here, we are going to do 2 double crochets. So wrap your yarn and make 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. We are only working into the plateaus, these 3 double crochets. So we're going to work into 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to work into 1, 2, and 3, all the way along. 1, 2, and 3. We're skipping the hills. We just work into the plateaus. So we're going to jump over and work into this first double crochet right here that's standing up after the chain 2. So wrap your yarn and into that standing double crochet. Make your uphill shells, so that is 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, and 1 double crochet into the same stitch. Chain 1, skip 1, so into the center double crochet, 1 double crochet. Chain 1, skip 1 into the last of the 3 double crochets. We're going to do our downhill shell. So that is 1 double crochet, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. Look for your next plateau. So just skipping over all of that slopey bit, all the valley. We want to look for these 3 standing double crochets, or the 3 double crochets that are standing up. Into the first double crochet, we're going to do a uphill shell, same as what is below. So into the top of that double crochet, we'll do 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, and 1 more double crochet into the same stitch. Chain 1, skip 1 into that next double crochet, 1 double crochet. Chain 1, skip 1 into the next double crochet. We're going to do our downhill shell. That is 1 double crochet, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. Look for your next little plateau, those 3 double crochets. Into the first double crochet that is standing up, we will make our uphill shell, so that is 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 1 double crochet into the same stitch. Chain 1, skip 1, 1 double crochet into the next stitch. Chain 1, skip 1, and a downhill shell into the next. So downhill shell, 1 double crochet, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. Jumping over, looking for those next 3 double crochets that are standing up. Into the first one, do your uphill shell, the opposite of what we just did. So 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, and 1 double crochet into the same stitch. Chain 1, skip 1 into the next stitch, 1 double crochet. Chain 1, skip 1 into the next stitch, a downhill shell. So that is 1 double crochet, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. At the end of your row, we have our chain left. So we're not going to work into the space. We're going to be working into our chain. And we want to skip 2 chains and work into the third. So wrap your yarn and skip 2 chains. You can kind of just see these loops. There's 1 and 2. We want to work into the third. So wrap your yarn and work into the third chain. You want to have 2 strands of that stitch on the top of your hook. And do your uphill shell, so 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, and 1 more double crochet. And that finishes row 2. So now this is the repeat. We start with a chain 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Slide your hand under, turn your work into the very first stitch, right where our chain is, right down here. We are going to do 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. So our chain 4 in this pattern counts as a double crochet and a chain 2. I know it should be a chain 5, but if you do a chain 5, your edges will look like this. I did chain 5 down here, and you can see it is a lot longer. So if you change it to a chain 4, you'll get more of a square shape, which is what we like. So now looking for the next 3 double crochets that are standing up. Find the first one, wrap your yarn and do your uphill shell. So 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, chain 2, and 1 double crochet into the same stitch. Chain 1, skip 1, 1 double crochet into the next stitch. Chain 1, skip 1, and a downhill shell into the next. So that is 1 double crochet, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. 1 and 2. So now we're just going to do the same thing, jumping over to the next plateau, our 3 double crochets, into the first, our uphill shell. So that is 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, a chain 2, and 1 double crochet into the same stitch. Chain 1, skip 1, into the next stitch, 1 double crochet. Chain 1, skip 1, into the next stitch, a downhill shell. So 1 double crochet, chain 2, and 2 double crochets into that same stitch. 1 and 2. So we're going to keep going along like this for the rest of the row, looking for the plateau, doing our uphill shell, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, downhill shell, all the way along until you reach the end of your row. When you reach the end of your row, wrap your yarn and into the 3rd chain, 2 strands of that stitch on your hook. We'll make 2 double crochets, 1, 2, chain 2, and 1 double crochet. So that's the repeat. You keep going, doing the same row over and over until your square is approximately the same height as your other squares. So to start the last row, chain 1 and turn your work. Into this very first stitch, right there, we're going to make 1 single crochet. Chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Look for your next little plateau, those 3 double crochets. Into the first one, 1 single crochet. Chain 1, skip 1, 1 single crochet into the next. Chain 1, skip 1, 1 single crochet into the next. Chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Jump over to your next 3, 1 single crochet into the first. Chain 1, skip 1, 1 single crochet into the second. Chain 1, skip 1, 1 single crochet into the third. So we're just kind of putting a roof on these little squares here. Chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Look for your next little plateau, those 3 double crochets. 1 single crochet into the first. Chain 1, skip 1, 1 single crochet into the second. Chain 1, skip 1, 1 single crochet into the third. Chain 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Jump over to the next plateau, 1 single crochet, chain 1, skip 1, 1 single crochet into the next, chain 1, skip 1, 1 single crochet into the third. Chain 4, 1, 2, 3, and 4 into your chain. So we want to work into the same spot, so that third chain down. So 1, 2, and 3. Right there. Make 1 single crochet. Chain 1, cut your yarn, pull your hook up and your yarn through, and snug that down to secure. Sew in your ends, and you're finished. So I hope you liked the stitch as much as I did. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, go ahead and hit that subscribe button down below and the notification bell beside that, so you don't miss out on any more quick and easy tutorials just like this. If you're over on Instagram, you can find me at Secret Yarnery, or Facebook, The Secret Yarnery. You can also join our Facebook group, The Secret Yarnery Crochet Community. It's a great place to upload your photos and have your questions answered. There's so many awesome ladies over there. It is amazing. So thanks so much for hooking along. We'll see you in the next tutorial, and stay hooked.